Hi there. Welcome to Sundays with Kate Quinn of Fabricated Quilts. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate that you value this time and you're willing to share it with us, with me. I'm excited about that. So last week we did some fun designs with the apple core template. And as I was playing with it and putting it away, I thought, well, there's a little bit more here that we can explore that might help give people some additional ideas. And I also want to point out that Leonie West has some designs on Westalee by me in the library that she has created. So she's got several different templates that have library of designs that are available on Westalee by me. So if you don't have it, it's pretty fantastic and really fun. And we are going to focus on the 3-inch apple core. And the reason for that is because I've gridded it at 1.5. And that way we won't have to, do some other grids or other markings. This will make it easier for us just to have all the one size. But many of these designs can be done with the other sizes. I will say that the 1-inch size is very small, so it is harder to do some of these, designs that have designs inside of the 1-inch because it's already so tiny. But it's a great, cute little fill, and it looks terrific, but not as easy to put something inside. So I see a lot of my regulars, and I love seeing what you guys do on all of our different sites. You guys are so talented. Welcome if you're new. So Honey is not here today, for those of you who know who Honey is. So he is on a road trip, so I am by myself. So hopefully be patient with me if I don't see your question right away. I do have another feed that I'm going to be monitoring to try and make sure I get the questions, but if I don't answer it during our time, then I will definitely answer it after when I go through and check all the questions. So thanks for your patience in advance. Okay, so let me show you where we're going because I have this very cute sample. All right, so a couple more ideas. So did you know the apple core can do that super beautifully and easily? Woo! Pretty exciting. I love that design. It's really fantastic. And look at the cute little embellishment we can put in there too. So I'll show you how to do that. This one got a lot of attention. When people saw this one, this is the one I got the most comments about. So we are going to be doing that. And then this one, it's not the most exciting, but it could be cool. We can put other fills in there too. So maybe we'll embellish that one just a little bit for you. And then the last one is kind of a border option, and we'll show you how to do that. And then this one would be maybe a fill that you could put in with it if you wanted to. So, and let's show you. We've got our grid. So people are asking me about the grid, so I'm just going to comment on it. It is purchased from Long Arm University, which is longarmuniversity.com, I think. And it's called a stencil grid, but there are many people out there that make these. And I recommend the basic sizes 1-inch, 2-inch, and 1.5-inch. And they're not just for apple core. I use them for so many things, for free motion, for any template that has a regular measurement, like a 3-inch circle would fit perfectly in this grid, that type of thing. In fact, here, I'll give you a little sample. So if you're going to do clamshells and you want to make your clamshells go straight, I'll put this on here so you can see the alignment. If we use a 1.5-inch grid on this, look at how everything is going to line up perfectly. So this way, that's your 1/4 inch, and this helps you as you build your design to keep everything lined up so you don't have your clamshell go woo off to the edge. So let's go ahead and get started. Last week I realized I kept putting it in the wrong place, so I'm going to line up the template first, and then we'll line up the foot. How about that? So just as a reminder, this innermost square line is the 3-inch square. So when you're lining up your template, the markings on this inner part all the way along, there's a little square, not these diagonals, but the square, will be exactly 3 inches. And so that's why this 1.5 inch grid is so great, because it matches up. We also get a center line out of it here. So that's really convenient if we have it at 1.5. All right, so let's pull up our thread. Oh, my hands are shaking today a little bit, you guys. I took a really long walk and I can tell that I'm feeling it. Okay, so when we did the design last week, we went across the top and then across the top each time, just this way. So in order to do the one that we want to show you today, we got to shift it around a little bit, okay? What we're making for the clamshell is you're making the curvature, so we'll do that part first. Okay, stopping right at that intersection, and now we want to come back down on that curve, so you got to flip it 1 time. So this is just 1/4 turn, and that's going to give us outer curve and outer curve right here. Okay, now here's my little thing I noted. I tend to get a long stitch right here, right at the top here. So before you get that long stitch, start your gas, right? Start your machine and then move. That's going to prevent that little weird long stitch in there. Okay, and then here is where we can make that downward one. So we're just going to keep going. We'll just make our clamshells. All right, here we go. And so some people will say, you know, well, why do I want to use this template for that? You don't have to. If you have a different template, you can use a different one. But if you have this one and you don't have a clamshell, well, then now you do, right? This one is also going to help us because it's going to give us some other options. So we'll just do, I think, one more clam. There we go. And the reason I like it here is because you do have those beautiful lines. So why does this work as a clamshell? So this shape right here, and actually all of these, is 1/4 of this curve. So this clamshell right here is half of a circle, and this is essentially 1/4 of that. And it goes diagonally just perfect. All right, so now we have the clamshell right here. So now on the last one, we don't have to move. We can just stay where we are. And we want to put this curve like this in here. So let me turn it just so you can see what happened. Give you a good view. Okay, so we did the clamshells, and now we're going to do this opposite curvature. So these are convex, and now we're going to do, I guess, well, same curve. Just depends on how you're looking at it, right? All right, so we want to go on this inside like this. So we're still going to line up on our little box. We've got all these reference lines here and these center lines, which make everything so easy. As we get to this top, we want to make sure that we touch the stitch. So if you need a tiny correction there to make sure that this touches, you can just do that. It's perfect. Now, look at what we have, right? This is the clamshell, but this is the top of this clamshell below, right? So now we've got to turn and get ourselves lined up. And this is just something you do visually. You know, it's not complicated. It's just, you just got to look. Do I need a clamshell, or do I need, you know, this part that's coming down? All right, so let's see where we are. So we got to go back up, get everybody lined up. And we'll do that same 1/4 turn right there. And that'll get us right into here. And then after this, I'll take a minute and I'll kind of look at some questions that we may have, see if anybody's got any questions. So this will close out that last clamshell. And I'll just tack him right on there. We are going to close this and tie off when we put the little designs in, the little tulips. We're not going to be connected. So we have to disconnect everybody. So let's pull this away about 6 inches. You're going to go ahead and line up everything right where you left off, right there. And we'll bring our needle down and up. This is the loop that we created. So when you pull it out, remember that if you pull both sides, that's how you can lift up that bobbin. So this is the bobbin thread right here. All right, snip, snip. I'll just move this out. We want to give you guys a chance to see everything. So let's get everybody trimmed up. All right, so there's our clamshell right there. Beautiful. The ice cream or the cone. So Peggy Anderson, that's a great way of thinking about it. Anytime that you have something visual, if you can relate it to something real, that is so great. So Peggy's comment was, do we need the cone? You know, I guess this is the cone, or do we need the ice cream? So I think that's really useful. I love it. I might steal that, but I'll give you credit. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so let me look real quick and see if we have some questions really fast. Yes, so I'm going to answer Jennifer Teed's question. So she says, theoretically, you could make a circle with the template. Absolutely. Great. You're totally firing on all cylinders. You're seeing the connections. So, and the reason that you can even figure this out is, you know, this is my 3-inch. That's my clamshell, right? So look at right here. If I put it on there, it's the exact same curvature, right? But this one, it has kind of that bump stop in different places, and it's got diagonal. So this has some more markings. Now these are both great. They're different, but they can do a lot of the same things. It's just really what's your comfort zone and what additional references work best for you. But this can do a lot. And this diagonal is, you know, sometimes we're trying to put things corner to corner to make diagonals, but I love this on the corner to corner. It fits perfectly in this space. So sometimes the diagonals can be tricky, but with this apple core, you get that perfect diagonal spacing. So I love that. All right, well, let's make our fun little design. So I'm going to show you, when we make the flower, you can't think of it like this, okay? You got to think of it like that, Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll get started. The very first thing we want to do is we're going to space the foot right in this intersection right here. Okay, and we'll pick up our thread there. So the inspiration for this design came from a beautiful piece of sashiko work that I saw online, and oh, I put it in the wrong spot. We want to start at the middle. I'll show you why. I don't know why I'm thinking the corner, but we are going to use the corner, but if you start in the middle, it's a better path, I think. All right, here we go. My brain is going 100 miles an hour while we're talking. I'm still thinking about the next. Gotta be present. All right, so get everybody lined up. This is where it's going to tack off. So if we did it out here, we'd get kind of a weird tack, I found. It can be continuous, but here we'll have several intersections, so this will camouflage the tie-off better, which is why I decided to do it this way. So let me show the alignment real quick. Get all these guys out of there. All right, so right here, we're going to line this up on this center line. And technically, it should allow you to align the edge of the plastic right on your design. So if it doesn't, maybe I'm like 1 stitch too low or something like that. Right there, you can see that it'll line up right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch out essentially to the corner. Okay, and remember that this is a symmetrical curve right there. So I can still get myself all the way in. Now, right there, I'm going to stop when I'm touching. And let me show you how we get back. We're just going to flip it right at the corner and just pivot it until we have the 1/4 inch. Now, you can do that, you know, eyeball if you want to. That's going to help you make it nice and clean. Get right back to the center. Okay. Now let's do the same thing on this side. Get ourselves lined up. So if we pull it in there a little bit, see, I won't have to adjust it. I'll be able to get right up to the line. So stopping when the foot is touching, that's the 1/4 inch right there. Once we get ourselves where the foot is touching, the needle is a 1/4 inch away, right? And so here, we'll do the same thing. Just flip it. Oh, we're trapped. Let's cut these little guys. They're in my way. Oh, they're around my tape. Darn it. There we go. All right, so now we learned. Cut them early. Okay, so right here, you're in the foot hook, and there's your 1/4 inch spacing right there. So just get yourself lined right up there with that. Notice that the flat edge of my spacing gauge is flush with the template, flat against it, not canted like that, but flat. And that's what's going to bring the needle right into where we want. So let me show you some things about getting the center of the tulip in. This one's a little tricky, but I want to show you what it's going to look like. We have this center line, right? And we can pivot our arc. We want this outer arc. We can make it touch anywhere we want. We can make it touch right here, and it'll be a 1/4 inch away, and it'll get right to that center line. But if we have it too wide, that means it might cut into this lobe on either side. So when I was doing mine, I decided that I wanted just to make sure it didn't cut in. So right down there was where I was measuring my 1/4 inch to make sure that this would not cut in as it sews. And that's how I did both sides. So you can see, I'll show you when we're done. Alrighty, one more time. And then same thing coming back right here, getting that 1/4 inch right there. And that means that right there, it should kiss that, but it won't cut into that design right there. And I'll have to show you something. I think I was a stitch off, but guess what? Who cares? See that? See how I'm off? Guess what? The chalk line is going to go away. It's going to be fine. Okay, so right here in the middle where we have all of those intersections, that's where we're going to tack off a little bit. Because we have so much stitching there, nobody will see it. If we did it right out here on the corner, it would be really visible. But doing it in the center like that is a smart way to camouflage that where you have that extra stitching. Alrighty, so I would stitch the whole flower. I'm going to turn this so you can see better. So like I said, this becomes your boat, your base, and then this makes these designs kind of float upwards. So normally we think of the clamshell the other way. So this has the effect of essentially changing that orientation completely, because this sort of becomes your boat, and the lotus or your tulip is floating in the boat. And one of the things I did on the other sample, let me show you. That might seem like a lot of work. I mean, I would do it, and I would potentially do it in a bunch of them, but you don't always have to do it in every single one. You could create your own pattern and just do it in that pattern. So for me, this was the pattern. You know, down, up, down, and then if you had more, you know, this one potentially would have one as well. So this would be every other one, and then you would have potentially a row with all of them. So whatever pattern you create, if you just wanted to say, you know, put in 4 or 5 of these, just space them around, just make a little X where you think they should go. After you do your clamshell basics, then you can come back in and you can fill that in. And as you saw, this could certainly be done with your clamshell as well. So good opportunity to see what you can do if you maybe have the clamshell, but you don't have the apple core. I'm sure that you can do this same design with that as well. All right, so let's see what we got here. What is the name of the square template? Okay, so then Brenda, this is the apple core template. This is what we're using today. So it comes in a 3-piece set, and it's got 2 different sizes, which I'll see if I can find mine, but I'm not sure what I did with them. I guess I cleaned up a little too good. But they look just like this, but then they're commensurately smaller and smaller. So really a fun template with a lot of great value. Alrighty. Thanks for your patience, guys. So we're just gonna try to go through here and see if we can make sure. Low blood sugar. Yeah, Sandy, probably. Alrighty. So Lori, yeah, I'm gonna comment on Lori Smith's comment. She said she uses the clamshell and she has trouble keeping it straight. So you guys can see that we've gridded this here, but the clamshell relationship, let's put this up here too. Any clamshell, anything that is an actual circle, the relationship of the base width, this is a 3-inch clamshell, which means that it's going to stitch out 3 inches wide. So this distance is 3 inches. If it's actually a circle clamshell like this one, then this distance from the center to the top is half, right? Because you're quartering the circle. So if this is 3, this is 1.5. So if you made your spacing, you could make reference lines at 1.5, and then you would have a reference where this would be at the top and it would hit that 1.5-inch line. And that's one of the reasons I use the grids, is because I can put the grid on before I ever sew anything. And if the grid is crooked, I'll just take it off and fix it right away before I sew anything. And then when I'm sewing, the grid will help me keep the design straight. And that's true for many, many designs. So it's definitely a really functional thing to have. All right, so let's see. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll move on to our next one. So we've done this one. We've done the clamshell piece and the little detail design. And then let's go ahead and we'll do this one, and then I'll just kind of continue the plan over here. So notice how this would be the box right there, and these are kind of all going in the same direction. And I'll give you some tips right here. See how mine is not quite perfectly lined up, but it's much better over here. We'll talk about ways that you can do that and do it as good as you can. All right, so let's get our stuff back up here. So what we'll do in order to show the design spacing, we need about 4 boxes for that cathedral. So we'll kind of put it into this 4-inch, 4-unit space. Let's see right there. Let's get lined up. So right here, we're going to miss this one, but we'll be able to pick that up easier. I don't really want to have this too much off when we start. We'll get it right here, and then we'll show you the path as we go down. One of the things I like about this design and the way that it works is it's really, really easy to make it continuous. And as long as you think a little bit ahead, you can make it continuous. And even if you make a mistake, you can correct it. So we'll kind of show you that. You'll see if I make a mistake. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to focus on one side all the way down, okay? And that kind of makes it easy so we don't have to constantly flip everything around. We're literally just going to move it down and get it lined up just like that. So let's talk about if you were doing this on a quilt. So I've had a lot of questions. A lot of people say, why can't we do it on a quilt? It's a lot more flexible in a demo to be able to just pivot immediately. If I was actually sewing this on a quilt, would I want to have to stop and explain and change to something else? Or if I had different thread colors, that's why we often don't. So you can see that is so cute. So if you wanted to make clouds, there you go. Doesn't that look awesome? You could totally make clouds with that. I would love that. That would be really fun. Now, we just want to go back. So we have the same alignments. We've got our box and we got our center lines. Now, as we come in, I'm going to focus on trying to just make sure that that touches right at that intersection as best I can, right there. That's the key right there, is making this design pretty. making sure that we get everybody back into their intersection right there. The reason that the one with the cathedrals looks a little better is because it has more intersections coming in at that point, so it can cover up if things don't match exactly. Right? All right, so let's go one more. All right, so we said we were going to close this one over here, right? So this one is going to go opposite. So these all are going this way, like this. This one's going to go opposite. Alrighty, and now we can move down this line right here, just like we did this other one. I was trying to do a small area. We ended up going a little far. But it's going pretty quick. All right, so let's talk about the path right now. So if essentially if this was our box right now, we could use this one and we could start going up here, right? And then we could do this one, and then we can go this way. Let me take it off for a second. Okay, so anytime we come to the end of our row, now this row is going to match this one. So this one we can go up like this, and we can come back and travel this way, back up here if we need to. So it's this pattern in between. So essentially you've got one empty box, and the empty boxes will go the opposite direction. All right, let's get lined up real quick. Right in that, tuck him right in there. Make sure all of your reference lines are lined up. If they're not, you can give them a little tug. So one of the things about any type of circle design is if I sew a straight line, okay, we'll just pretend like if I just sewed this straight line, the quilt is going to draw into the line. That's normal, right? If we do a curve, the quilt is going to draw in all along the curvature on all sides. So it's going to draw in there, in there, in there, and there, because this is part of a circle. So what you'll find, even with the clamshell or with this apple core, anytime you have a curve, the quilt will draw in all directions. So what you might see is as we sew more and more, it might be tougher to get the lines to line up. That's normal. That's totally fine. So you can just give it a little pull, a little tug here and there to make all your lines line up. All right, so that'll close that little one that had a little, problem child right there. He wasn't right connected. So now with that additional line, he will be. Let's do one more. And that'll get us into the end of that design. All right. So we can keep going, or we can close this. If we need to close this guy, we can just go back the other way. This is where you'll start to see the first flower right here. And you can see, again, we're coming back in. So you'll see that this design ends up really correcting itself by connecting everybody. Okay, and now we're ready to go down this path, and we can close this back up. Every time I look at it, I keep reminding myself, yep, we can get that one closed. He'll get back. So right now, I could fill in this entire row. I could travel up here and back to there and down here and back to there. And then I can move over to the next one and do this next row. So I guess we'll do that. Instead of talking, we'll show it. All right. So we have this empty box. All these are filled. We have this empty row right there. So right now, we can go ahead and we'll fill this in, and that'll help us make our next cathedral ceiling. This is the last one for this row. And then right here, if we wanted to, we can fill that one in, and that'll close that row. So we won't have to come back to that. So this is what I mean by this design is really flexible. Anytime you're at some certain point, you generally have the ability to kind of finish it off and reconnect if your design wasn't, like if you missed a spot. This one really allows you to come back. So let me take it off and show you the path at this point. Okay, so we've got the design, right? And we're going to come back down this side. And we could even finish this one and come back. And then we'd be able to move down one. And we'd be able to finish this row. And then move down. And then we would travel. And anything that was right here that didn't get closed, we would travel here. And we would go finish this one. And then we could travel here and close everybody out. So this would probably be the last one. And I love how these designs form. They give you that circle, and then you get this beautiful intersection. And because we had so many times coming back into the center here, that's what makes these designs look filled in. That's why they have sort of a cleaner look than the ones that are just straight. So let's go ahead, we'll get set up, and we'll at least come down on this next row so we can have a complete circle, so we can show you that embellishment there. So right there, making sure we're going to close right into that center, because he has a little bit of an opening. So this way we can just maybe fudge right there and make sure we get all of that closed up. And then here. Okay, and now we'll flip it. Let's keep you in view real quick. So right there, we're going to come back here, and then we can finish this, and we can do this line in between. That'll just show you that path. So it is continuous. You just got to work your way through it and keep going. And I like, using this because I have so many great reference marks and alignments. I know that I can get everybody lined up beautifully and make him fit just perfect. All right, so here you can see that we've got some of the circles. So this would be where we'd start filling in, and we could close this shape as well. So we'd be able to essentially get all of these designs in a continuous fashion. So this does require, I guess essentially that you got to look. And one of the things that anytime I do stuff like this, I feel like it's easy to get off track. So if you know that that all of these lines go this way, put an X in that line, and then leave the other lines blank. And then you can just, remind yourself, okay, if it has an X, it's going to go from this corner to that corner. And if it has nothing, it goes this way. So here we'll finish this one. And this gets us right back to that corner. And then that's pretty much the rest of the design. I won't sew anymore, but now we have a couple of the center pieces there so you can see, right? So now we've got this cute, you're going to get kind of this star bit alternating here, and you're going to get this open space right there. Okay, so let's close this one, and then we'll do the embellishment in the center and show you how to do that. So we want to close it there, always checking to make sure that your orientation, if you're orientation challenged, this could be a challenging design, because I think it does have all of those, bits in there that make for different directionalities. All right, let's tie this off. And now we have a couple of these that we can put that fill in. Now, if you guys remember, I'm a queen of, I like the jump stitch. So we've tied it off. We've stitched our micro stitch right there, but the thread isn't cut. We can cut it, or we can just lift up a little bit. Give yourself some slack right there. Now I want to set the foot in here where it is 1/4 inch on each side. So we'll turn it so you can see it better. Right there. Now we can't really pull up the thread there. I mean, we could, but we don't need to. I'm just going to set the needle in place, and I'm going to hold this when I do the first bit. And I can literally just bring that up right there. This is the curve that we're going to use. This is what it looks like on the other side. Set it up so it's right on the stitch line, and you're sewing in until the foot touches. That's the bottom line right there. Right? So you'll have to rotate it to do the next one. You're going to line it up just the same. Right here until the foot touches. There you go. So there's your alignment right there until the foot touches. And who knows what we want to do on this last one? Somebody got some good ideas? What do we have to do now before we just sew in there? It's a trick question. Let's see. We have any good answers? Oh my gosh, we have lots of things. Oh. Okay, so I'm going to comment on something right now that I don't like to tell people what sewing machine I'm using. Not because I don't love my machine, but I want people to love the machine they have and know that theirs can do it. So most machines out there are just amazing anymore. They're so much better than they were, 20 or 30 years ago. And unless you just have, a clunker, you probably can do this technique. So I do have a Janome, but I've sewn on everything. I sew on Pfaff, I sew on Brother, Baby Lock, Bernina, you name it, I've sewn on it. And they are awesome. There's just so many great machines out there. So we just want to help you be comfortable with your own machine and get your own machine to work. And yep, I'm gonna dime out some people really quickly. Lori, Margie, Nancy, Linda, yes, right? Because what I need to do, I can trim this, but it's not necessary. But right now, I don't want to just randomly sew back to here. I want to close my design. So now is the time for spacing gauge. So it doesn't really matter right now if this matches perfectly right here. What matters is I have to close it, right? So if I need to adjust this a little to get closer, that's what I'm going to do. Nobody will tell if it doesn't, if it's a tiny bit bigger, but they'll definitely be able to see if it doesn't match, if it doesn't connect. Right? So here's where we'll definitely tie off. Loosen your thread, your presser foot, and then we'll pull this right up. This might be a good place to use the self-threading needle, but you guys know I don't do that because I'm really lazy. But if you wanted this to be cleaner, that would be a way to make it cleaner. Did I get my bobbin thread? Yes, I did. Okay, good. All right. So now we can pull this off, and we'll get these all closed out, and we'll tie them off. All right, what do you think? Good enough? I'll show you real close. So if that bothered you, that does not bother me. I'm good with it. I think it looks fine. But for some people, and the higher contrast thread that you use, the more anything like that will show. Like if I had a raspberry thread and I did that, you'd never see that. It would be fine, right? So it's just up to your perfection quotient, what you are willing to tolerate. And for me, my perfection quotient does not allow me to use a self-threading needle unless I have to. So, okay. So I love that design. And I think this adds a lot of detail here. And it also makes this a little more dense right here inside. So instead of these are kind of the even amount of quilting, like the puff is all the same. But with this one, notice that when we punch this down a little bit, it kind of makes these lift up a little bit. So I really like that. So this would be a really fun, you know, would I do another one? I don't think so. I'm lazy. I wouldn't do another one. It's too small. Okay, so let's get moving. Let's get on to another one. Let's show this border bit that we have. So we did show a cool border that we did before. And let's see. So this is how we're going to line it up. So we can't fit very many. Let's see how many we can get in here. I think we could do that. All right, so let me show you the alignment. This is the center line for this border. And the foot will start right there. And we're going to essentially sew the whole thing and then sew part way around. Or you can do the pass through. I'll show you how to do it as we go. That way we won't have any overstitching. Okay, so let me think. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Sorry. I'm like, I have to make sure we're in the right position. Oh my goodness, let me get my little, thank you. All right. Let's get these threads out of here. So right now we are going to sew back because we're going to sew all the way around. So we can just over tack that when we get down to the other side. So just nice and easy. This is meditative quilting. You're just going to follow it all the way around. Notice that my sandwich is totally straight. You do not see me trying to follow the curve like this. So this is something that I do see people do, especially younger or newer students, that what they try to do, this is a no-no, okay, just so you got it. They do this. They rotate to follow the curve like that. And what happens pretty soon is your body is contorted like a pretzel, and then you're not actually controlling your stitch because you're actually rotating around that needle. So it's very important that you push the sandwich the way you want to go. Push forward or pull towards you or push to the side, making sure that this stays essentially square. Okay? All right, so let me show you good visual here. So what we want to do is come in to the center, right? We can use our spacing gauge, and we're using this as the pivot. The little hook right there is our pivot. So we want to come right into the center. And, you know, if you're off, just fudge it. Remember, the chalk's going to go away, so we don't care. So right there, getting right onto the stitch line right there. And then we're ready for the next one. So this is going to give you that fill nice and easy. It's going to be very fast. You're going to be able to get this design in really quickly with no back stitching, no over stitching, nothing like that. And essentially all you need to do it to get it onto your border is you really just need the center line. And right there, this is where you would measure for the center. So if this right here is your center right here, if this line is the center, you'd set your needle and you'd sew out to the end of the border, and then you'd come back to this point and you'd sew that way out. And that would make this centered right in the middle of your border, which would be very convenient. Now, let me show you what we did here. We did under over. So we kind of want to keep that pathway so that we have like an undulation. You could do whatever you want. I'm just saying that if that's your pattern, you want to keep your pattern. That's all I'm saying. Okay, we're right at that point, and then we do the same thing, anchored at the foot, and here's your 1/4 inch right there with my edge of my spacing gauge flat against my template to get right into that stitch line. And then I think we can get one more. We'll just do one more real quick. Get everybody lined up nice and tidy. So this border, just so you can see, we've got the template on there right now. These lines, that is 3. So you can see that this would fit beautifully in a 3-inch border. And the reason I think it's perfect for a 3-inch border is because it mostly fills it in. But if your border is a little narrow or a little wider, you're not going to have an issue with this maybe going outside. This doesn't maximize that space, but it definitely fills it up nicely. I mean, you're going to get a nice full border look in there without it crowding everything, which I really like. All right, so we said go down on the first one. Let's see, can we eyeball it? Oh, sure. Oh, darn it, didn't do as good of a job. But remember, right, the chalk is going to go away. It's okay. Here we'll try to get right to the very center so that the design will kind of correct itself. All right, so let me show you one other thing here. Let's pull this off. So I could come back easily if I didn't feel like this had enough density. Let's kind of pull it up so you can see. If that didn't have enough density for me, we could literally echo right across the top and then come back and echo right across the bottom. And then this would have a lot more presence. The design itself would have more presence. And that would also be continuous. You would just be traveling here at the very end. You would, finish this one, the 1/4-inch echo or 1/2 inch or whatever you want. And then you would just scoot over and then you could just echo all the way back. So that could give this design, this is a nice, but it's not heavy. It's not very dense. So having just a few more lines in there will create a lot of density and a lot more visual power. So it'll bring your eye in there, plus it'll make this part stand up if we punch this down with a few more lines of stitching right here. All right, so let's tack off. Oh, do you want to see that? All right, we'll just scoot over. So you need your 1/4 inch, so you got to stitch down right there. This would be a lot of having to manipulate your template to do it. So right here, remember you got to stop in the middle, right? And then you'd go the other way. This right here is a 1/2 inch. It's the width of your foot because the needle is already centered, right? So like that. And then essentially right there, we're in position. We wouldn't even have to do anything. We're in the correct position. Get in there. And then same thing, this guy. So you can see that would sew up pretty fast, I think, to get that echo in there. Definitely want that spacing gauge though for this one. All right, so we're kind of done. I'll show you that. But if you did it on both sides, I think that would look really good. I think that'd give a lot of value to it. So, or you can just do it on one side, it's your call. But doesn't that look awesome? Love it. So having that little bit of density in there makes these lift up, and I love that bi-level look, as most of us quilters do. We often love that. All right, orange peel down the center. Yeah, that's a good idea too. You'd have to be careful that he's not too tall. You'd have to figure out whatever would fit in there. I'm not sure what that spacing, it looks about a 1/2 inch, but yeah, I think that's great. So Margie was saying that she could see putting an orange peel in there, and a super easy way to do that would be with your 12-inch arc. So here, we'll do it with chalk real quick. So this is what she's saying. So you would have your center markings right there. We're just going to fudge it without our spacing, without our stitching line disc, just to show you. Oh, see, my chalk just broke right off. Okay, let's get I think we're at the end of that piece, but it would look kind of like this. So I maybe would want something that was deeper than your 12-inch arc. So, you know, this is 3. So if you have the back-to-back curve, number 3 from the Fun and Fancy set, that has a nice 2-inch deep curve here and the 1.5. So you would probably be able to use that to make some beautiful deep arcs. I think the skinny one doesn't look as good. I think I would want it to have a little bit more of a deep curvature to it. Let's go ahead and we'll tack this off real fast. All right. Ooh, we got a lot of threads to trim. Let's cut these off. There we go. Alrighty, so there you go. You can see our design there, and I think that looks cool. And I would probably want to balance it, you know, to make the other sides, because it kind of has that alternating side. But, you know, you can leave it if you want to. It's up to you. All right, so let's see what's next. So let me show you what we can do right in here. So if this, we said this would fit into a 3-inch space right here, but what if we had a space that was bigger, that we wanted to put this in, but we feel like it needs a little bit more quilting? One of the great things that we can do with that template is we can put an alternating bit in there, and we can even use the border, the edge of it. Let's say that this was the edge of our border. So it would be matching over here essentially. So this would be the space. We'll just do it on the one side. Oh, cannot pick up that thread. All right, so let's get this lined up and then I'll show you how we are going to do it. So we have the center line right here. And we can, it depends on how big your border is. If your border was shorter, or we can just move it down further. You know, if we wanted to, we can start with it right there as the space. So I can line it up here. It's going to create a little space in between the existing design. So here, I'll just sew out here in the border so we can pick up our thread. Okay, so there we're in the margin of the border. And we're lined up right in the middle. And you can choose that spacing. I mean, you can make it only a 1/4 inch, or you can make it wider. And then I'll take this off for a minute because I don't think we're going to need it for the moment, and that'll let us switch templates. So here is our straight edge. So right now we are going to skip this one, and we need to be down here. So we're about a 1/2 inch away. So we need to come down about there in order for this to line up. See how we're this distance away? In order to do this one, we've got to essentially come down the same distance. So it's maybe about 1 inch to get down. Oh, maybe I went too far. Oh, darn it. That's okay. We're in the border. It'll all work out. So let's see if we can get ourselves aligned. Oh, I said one more. Here, we'll just fudge it. Nope, we're not there yet. We're looking to get lined up right there. And we're using that 1/4 inch space right there. Okay, let's just make sure that I'm being clear. Let me get my spacing gauge out and show you what I'm looking for. This center line is lined up on this apple core right here so that they'll be centered. And then right there, it's going to essentially hit the top of that intersection. And then the space that you see here is about a 1/2 inch, not exactly, and this will give us another 1/4, so they're going to be about 3/4 inch apart. And then same thing, I'll just fudge it here, we can just move down. This is how we would free stitch in the seam until you got your correct placement. We're looking to get this lined up in the middle. So you can see I slowed down as I went because I didn't want to overshoot it. And then I'm looking for the 1/4 inch right there, right? And then I'm ready. right, so at this point, this is when we can start putting those echoes in there if we want to. You can do it different ways, like right here if we wanted to. This should get us right back there. Let me make sure I'm in the ditch. One stitch in the ditch. You can do it this way from the bottom. Okay, and then here, let me pull this off so you can see. Right here, we would have to travel up in order to put more echoes in. So you can either use the template or you can move up. If the foot is touching right there, that's 1/4 inch echo. If we want to make it a little bigger, we can move up a little more. And we can use the spacing gauge to space it from the edge there. So right here, I'm using this straight edge and I'm using the spacing gauge, and then we can put this back on. So right there, get it lined up in the center. So you can see we can do whatever spacing we want. And the key that you would want to do is just making sure that you're doing it the same. And then on this one, if we wanted to start at the top, we could put the foot there, sew across and down, across and down, across and down. And we could use this as the center line to keep the curve from going crooked. So let me show you what happened with mine. So I think this one looks pretty good right here, but this one looks a little wonkier. He kind of like got off a little bit. So having the center line right there and lining the center line up can help you to have a little bit more of a symmetrical look as you fill that in. And you can, and if it's wonky, who cares, right? You can even make it wonky on purpose. You could tip it so that each piece, that it's a 1/4 inch over here, but it's touching there, so you could have it go like this. And that would just give you a totally different look. And then if it was messy, it wouldn't matter. And then look at what a cool shape that this creates. So these are only a 1/4 inch apart. Mine are bigger, but you can determine the spacing. And then look what a cool shape that this presents right here with this. So if you wanted to do some like little veining in here, I think that would look really awesome. All right, let's tie us off. All right. And then I think we might have enough space for maybe just one more. So we'll do one more. So I'm trying to pull up my bobbin thread. You see that? It won't come up. Has anybody ever had this happen to you? Typically, the reason that this happens is that as the thread was going around, it has not completed its rotation and it's locked up on the bobbin. So if that ever happens to you, take your hand wheel, rotate it forward, and then your bobbin will release. Did you know that? I've taught that a few times. I was like, I don't know how I figured that out, but I love it because sometimes it's just not enough far along so that it can release. Oh, I know. My head is full too. I'm going to take a nap after this, Miss Bonnie. All right, let's just do one more cute little area. Let's see if we can, I think we can fit it right in here. We'll abbreviate it to fit in this little space right here. I admit, I do spend like all day thinking about this stuff. Oh, I don't know if we're going to end up crowding that. Let's see if we can do it this way. I think maybe this will be a better space. All right, let's get lined up. All right, so we're back on our grid, which means we kind of need to get ourselves in right at this corner right there. So remember that we leave these up. You don't have to remember everything. Take some notes, but if you want to come back later and get more details, we try to make sure that they're available for you for later. All right. right, and we're just going to go over one more to this top, and then we're just going to show you the last bit of this idea. So notice how he should touch right there. Okay, so we have created a little wave right there. And if this was my border right here, if this was the end of it, I would use my straight edge to keep in my seam or to keep my space nice and clean. Okay, I'm touching right here. And now let's go backwards. I'll get it all lined up so you guys can see. Right there, we want to essentially keep it as lined up as we can. He's on that 1/4 inch. Let's see. Should we do it this way? This might be easier. We'll turn it this way. You're looking for that 1/2 inch in order to echo this. Right there. And let's turn it a little bit. It's the same arc no matter what, so this will let us get to that right there. And we got to go a little bit further because we're going to echo this one too. Right? So we have to be able to get enough room for the foot to come in. Okay. Right here, 1/2 inch with my spacing gauge. And I can turn it just a little bit to get myself right into there. So this could be a really easy and unique fill of just doing lines like that. And we can also make a bigger space. This is only a 1/4 inch, but you know, we can change the spacing. We could scoot down and maybe then now we have 1 inch. So let's do that. So you can create your own pattern with this. You don't have to do it any specific spacing, but you know, if you created your own pattern, that would be kind of cool. So right here, we'll just line this up. Let's see. Right there. Doesn't look the same, does it? I think we need to go a little bit further. Because he's going to sew out past this. He's got to come up into this one. And then we'll go back down. And then let's see where we are. There we go. And then at this point, you would sew down, right? And then you can echo this again, and you'll get essentially that same. If you did it on these lines, that would be the 1.5 inch apart, and then this echo will make it just 1 inch because this will take up that 1/4 inch on each one. So this could be its own little design just like that. Just do all the lines on the top and then skip all the lines on the top and skip, and then these are just an echo, and that would fill that in. And this would be all, you know, straight line, you know, working it in rows. And I love it. I think it looks great. It's kind of wavy. It's kind of edgy. Could be modern. Could be a great fill. So let's go ahead. We'll tack this off. And then I'm going to check real quick for any questions that we have. And so I will put some notes about the grid stencils. It's Long Arm University is where I get them. They're 12 by 30. I have a few of them if anybody is interested. They're a 3-piece set, 1 inch, 2 inch, and 1.5. And so if you're interested in that, I'll put the information out on Fabricated Quilts. Let's see. Yeah, spool shape, almost. Yeah, I'll have to think about how I can play with that. Somebody was saying that we could use the apple core to make a spool shape. It's kind of close. I can see that. We might have to make some adjustments, but it's possible. Let's see. Thanks for your patience. Pat's not here, so I have to go and kind of scroll back and check things. Okay, let's talk about ruler foot for a minute. So this on my machine is a brand ruler foot. This is made by the maker of my machine, and it came with my sewing machine, which has some ruler work settings. I know lots of manufacturers are now making feet. I know Baby Lock has one. I know Bernina has one. I know Janome has one. I know Pfaff has one. I'm not so much concerned about what you have as I am about making sure that it is the correct item for you, for your machine. So make sure that you're communicating with your local quilt store, your dealer. The Westalee foot can fit almost every make and model out there. It works fantastic. I've used it a lot, but I also have different brand ruler foots that work well too. Sometimes with the Westalee foot, you may need to adjust your needle position, for example, whereas if you get a brand foot, you might not have to do that. So there are pluses and minuses. The biggest thing that you always want to check is whenever you're using the Westalee foot, if your foot is on and the foot is in the up position like this, if I bring my foot down, see on mine, it knows that I'm doing ruler work, so it makes sure that the foot goes down out of the way of this. But on the Westalee foot, if your machine doesn't have that setting that lowers the foot out of the way, then this bar can bump your foot. So if you're using the Westalee foot, the rule is the needle comes up and then you can bring your foot up. And when you're sewing, you're going to put the foot down first and then you would bring the needle down. And that way you won't have any problem with your foot, having a problem. And I taught myself how to sew with a ruler foot, right away with that method, and I still use it because it is very practical. And that way it also makes sure that when I set things in place and I'm ready to sew, that I'm physically looking at this combination. So let me just put some fabric under there real quick. So if you have the method of when you're starting to sew, you're going to set your needle in place, right? So your foot is down, you get your needle in position, you're going to put your ruler up against the foot. Now, right now, I physically look at this, right? Then I make sure that the ruler isn't accidentally up into the needle area. I make sure that it's touching the foot, that it is compressed. And I try to hold up close here, 1 or 2 fingers off of the ruler, and then these fingers controlling right up against the foot. If you hold with your ruler back here, this is what's going to happen right there. Okay, you got to get your hands up in here, right? It's about the 1/4 inch away. That's why my spacing gauges are up in this curvature, but not right to the edge. So if I'm holding on my spacing, my stitching, oh my goodness. Guys, I'm so sorry. On my staple tape, then I make sure that my fingers are in the right position. Now, if I have my whole hand on the ruler and the fabric moves against the ruler like that, I won't be able to tell because my hand and my ruler are stuck together. By putting a couple of fingers off, I'm making sure that if the ruler shifts, these fingers are going to feel it. They are aware of that movement. And then I can say, oh, wait, did I slide or something like that? And if you're sliding, what is the obvious thing you need to do? Put more stable tape on or put it in a better spot. Because if you put it somewhere where you're holding down here, that's not going to do anything. You have to actually compress on this stable tape in order for it to hold for you. Okay? All right, so let's see. If you have any questions about your foot for your setup, you can message me and I will help you because I do that. I like that. I like to help make sure you have the right stuff. Yes, Sandy, I am not paid for this, but I love doing it. It's okay, so I'm fine. I wouldn't do it if I didn't want to. Nobody's twisting my arm. All right, you guys, I won't keep you waiting and, not seeing anything and me just wandering around. If you have a question that did not get answered, I'll give you 30 seconds to throw your question out there and I will answer it. And then I will go back through the feed after we're all done, like I always do. This video will be posted to Facebook a week behind. It'll post here now after we are done. And I'm going to be sending them to YouTube on next Sunday morning at 12. I'm finding that, you know, there's people that don't have access to Facebook. So if you have friends that, you know, you think that would benefit from this, but they aren't on Facebook, if you could just let them know that we'll be posting the same material out there. It's a little easier to organize it by style. So I have a Westalee playlist, I have a free motion playlist, I have a handy quilter playlist. So it lets you kind of target where you want to find the information that you're looking for. And I do try to put the name of the template in the comments or in the subject header so you don't have to, you know, watch the video to figure it out. It'll say apple core or artisan curve or circle or whatever it is. So that way, hopefully people can get more easy access to it. So we're just trying to fill that out and kind of organize our information. Okay, so let's go back to the end and see if anybody stuck a question in there. All righty, you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being here and sharing the day with me. Makes my week better. And I love hearing from you, and I have seen some amazing things that people have shared. So please, I'd love to see what you're working on. I'm not a big business. I'm a person, you know, I'm at home just like everybody. And I'd love to see what you're doing. So go ahead and send me it or post it in any of these posts, and I check them all. So happy quilting. Have a great day. I'll see you next week. I have 2 classes this week. Beginner on Tuesday. If you wanted to sign up, it's free. And another one on Thursday, which is Fun and Fancy and the sampler set. And that is also, the information for that is on So Steady. It's also on my Fabricated Quilts page. So, yeah, so Nancy put a comment out there. She said, if you order Space and Gauge from So Steady, make sure to tell them you want the teal one, right? And that's this one. It's a little different from the one that we had before, which was clear. So they have both of them. This one, if you buy the Fun and Fancy, the teal Space and Gauge is the featured promotional item. You get this free. So if you like the Fun and Fancy collection, then this would be a great option because you'll get this for free. So, alrighty, you guys, thanks again. My name, Cindy, are you asking my name? Cindy Mateer. My name is Kate Quinn, and I'm the owner of Fabricated Quilts, which is quilting education, and I do some long arm work as well. So you can find me, if you just type it in, it's Fabricated Quilts. So it is fabricated with a K, not a C. And that's how you can find me. And my name is Kate Quinn. Oh, thank you for asking. So, alrighty. Bye. You can watch it later. I'll post it in just a few minutes. Have a great day, you guys. Bye-bye.